Welcome in, everybody, to Fantasy Pros. This is the Fantasy Football Podcast. It is me, Joey P, Joe Pisapia, and it's time for Championship Waiver Week. That's right. Happy holidays, everybody. It's a beautiful time. A lot of crazy football. Hopefully you had a kicker from Dallas that got a lot of points. You love when kickers decide fantasy football glory. You got to love that. Stop playing with kickers, everybody. But we got some new quarterbacks this past weekend. Made some big impacts. I would think also, too, when you're looking at the standings, some really exciting games yet remaining. So a lot of teams with a lot to play for, which is good for the NFL, good for fantasy. Fitzy, it's such a wild close to week 16. You were telling me before the show, you had Jonathan Taylor in 2 leagues remaining. One, obviously you won with him, and the other you lost. And that is insane. What a crazy Sunday we just came off of.
No, Joe, that's actually not correct. I was in 2 games involving Jonathan Taylor. I had him in a league and lost. And
Wow.
I was going against him in a league and won.
That's what it was.
So that
my ADHD kicked in, and I
know
that.
Yeah,
Joey goes bright light.
I tried so hard.
The league where I was going against him, the manager I was going against also had Jalen Hurts, so I guess that sort of netted out evenly. And the league where I had him, I just played a team that like everything clicked for them, and I had a good week and just lost to a team that scored an avalanche of points.
This is what happens sometimes, and I know when Jalen Hurts got hurt, Dbro, his Sunday was over. The rest of the day, he was texting me at like 1:05. Well, I'm done. Just misery.
I was right.
You had a great run. Unfortunately, we're both out of that last league together, so
you're not first to last, Joey. If you're not first, you're last.
Yeah,
that's all that comes down to.
But look, this is what it's all about, man. We're trying to help everybody else win. There's still some names on the waiver wire. Look, last week was tons of streaming quarterbacks, very important. So we're going to get to some more of those potentially today for you. We saw Michael Penix play. We saw Mason Rudolph put up points. I told you he put up at least 15, and he did. Was it pretty? No, of course not. But it doesn't matter. Points are points, and that's what we're searching for in this last week. And we're trying to make good decisions also. So let's just jump right in with the quarterbacks here. Fitzy, I want to talk about Michael Penix. It felt like yesterday the playbook sort of opened up for the Atlanta Falcons a little bit. He also learned the hard lesson of don't throw the ball to Kyle Pitts because only bad things can happen.
Oh, yes. You saw the arm talent with Penix.
Yeah.
I mean, can that guy spin it? Like, he has just unbelievable arm talent. Also, 2 things he was very good at in college, sack and interception avoidance, 2 things that Kirk Cousins was not real good at. So this was definitely a warranted move for them. And I think you could play Penix this week against the Commanders. Not an ideal matchup, but he is widely available. And, I think he's one of the better streaming options available, if not the best one.
Yeah, Penix certainly confident, I would say, is what I would say. Confident in the pocket, too, which is good. That's what you want to see. First starts can be a little shaky. Now, granted, the opponent was the New York Football Giants, so that certainly would make most people comfortable. But regardless, Washington a much bigger test this week. So do you think he's up for that? Because Washington coming off a huge win here. Do you think that we're going to see a more challenged Penix this week?
Yeah, the only thing is, Joe, I don't think he's going to put up big numbers because I don't think Atlanta wants him throwing it 40 times. So maybe if you have to stream, I mean, you might actually be better off with Mason Rudolph, the aforementioned Mason Rudolph, who gets a great matchup against the Jaguars. We for him, 40 pass attempts is in play, and for Penix, it probably isn't. So maybe Mason is the better streamer, but Mason could also, yesterday we got 2 touchdown passes and 3 interceptions for Mason Rudolph. It could be 1 touchdown and 4 interceptions, and then you're probably not too excited that you started him.
Probably not. Let's go to another quarterback worthy of streaming this week. I finally got back on track with the upset special on Betting Pros. Carolina Panthers prevail. Yay! Let's go Panthers. Roar. Let's talk about the Bryce Young. Another guy, too, playing loose. He took a shot yesterday in that game, and he bounced back up, and he was smiling. And that's a big part of, I think, development in the NFL is guys starting to feel comfortable, again, with the speed of the game, with the impact of the game at that level. It looks like Bryce Young starting to settle in. The matchup coming up this week is against Tampa, and certainly that secondary continues to be one that you can score fantasy points against.
Yeah, Joey. And the other thing we're seeing out of Bryce Young, looking at streaming in this week, is he's running. He's got at least 20 rushing yards in 3 of his last 5 games. And yeah, the Buccaneers pass defense, like in the primer of this last week, I was like, oh, they're improving. And then they go out and allow 292 passing yards and 8.3 yards per attempt to Cooper Rush. And I was like, they suck again. So never mind. We're streaming Bryce Young.
All right, let's get to the running back streamers. Before we do, it's the most wonderful time of the year. It's the time for getting all the hoops, the football, and the hockey action you could possibly get only on DraftKings. It's a season of giving, and we'll be gifting college football, basketball, all the pro football playoffs around the corner, pro hockey too, everything 24/7. And of course, our Betting Pros channel is here to help you bet responsibly and smartly, not to mention downloading the app too, because when you do, you get that FP free code, you get 30 free days. And then you can go over to DraftKings and start making some cash back on all those presents that you spent over the holidays. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app right now. Use that promo code FantasyPros. That's code FantasyPros for new customers to get 150 in bonus bets if your bet wins when you bet just $5. Happy holidays from DraftKings. The crown is yours. Let's get to the running backs. Dbro, let's start with your side here because I know we were talking about looking ahead to the running back position. I know tonight we're going to get the guy that you want to talk about, but barring anything that we're going to see tonight, and injury obviously being the significant thing that could always pop up, especially when you play for the Saints, what are your thoughts next week for Kendre Miller playing against the Las Vegas Raiders?
I mean, hopefully, and we're recording this before the Monday night game, hopefully he's the guy that's getting the workhorse volume. He's getting all the snaps, which we saw after Kamara was gone last week. That was the case. So projecting that forward, hoping we don't see too much Jamal Williams. But if he is the workhorse back going against the Raiders, I mean, he's going to get the touches. The matchup is great. And Kendre this year on a per-touch basis, it's been really stinking good, man. 30%, 36% missed tackle rate, 2.96 yards after contact per attempt. If he's going to sniff 15 to 17 opportunities in that game against the Raiders, probably going to be an RB2.
All right, so there you go, another RB2 potentially this week. Another guy too, Dbro, before the show was talking about the James Conner issue there, but Trey Benson, another guy who might be streamable this week. Let's talk about him and that matchup he has against the Rams, Fitzy.
If he plays, Joe, that's the key. And if Benson returns, and people who want to pick up a streaming running back for this week are going to have to pay close attention to the injury reports out of Arizona, because Trey Benson missed week 16 with an ankle injury. But if he comes back, he should get a lot of work for a team. And that's the thing that concerns me about Kendre Miller. Like, can Spencer Rattler move the offense, keep the chains moving? Because if they can't pick up first downs, it's not going to be a good day for Kendre Miller, no matter who they're playing. And I'm certainly, concerned about that for anyone who has Kendre Miller tonight against the Packers, because I think they're going to have a hard time in chilly Lambeau Field with Spencer Rattler at quarterback. We're not going to have that with Kyler Murray. Like, we know Arizona is going to get a little bit of offense. They're going to be able to generate first downs and scores. So if Trey Benson doesn't play this week, if it's like a high ankle and he's not able to go, all of a sudden Michael Carter, remember him, Jets fans? He becomes sort of interesting. They activated him from the practice squad and were playing him yesterday over DJ Dallas in that game against the Panthers.
It's week 17 when we start talking about these guys. So there you go. Michael Carter, DJ Dallas. What's the world coming to? Let's get to the wide receivers. Fitzy, what'd you make from Jalen McMillan's performance last night, and how does that carry over potentially for you against Carolina?
Yeah, he's good.
Hey, if you go back and you watch all those stupid draft shows we did, man, back in August, how many Jalen McMillan shares did I draft? And of course, in real life, I did the same thing, and I dropped him. And now, all of a sudden, the last couple weeks of the end of the season, it finally comes to fruition. So it's nice to know the process is good, but man, it's frustrating to watch.
Yeah, and hat tip to our guy Dbro, who was saying all along that Jalen McMillan was a better prospect than Jalen Polk. And we have seen that come to fruition big time. So yeah, McMillan is tied to a good quarterback. He seems to be number 2 in the target pecking order now behind Mike Evans, but there is still enough left over, especially with Cade Otton hurt, for the Buccaneers, and the matchup against the Panthers is good. So I do think McMillan is the best available wide receiver this week.
All right, so McMillan in there. I know another guy that we talked about last week, we're going to drag over this week, Romeo Doubs. Matchup next week against Minnesota. And Doubs has been able to find the end zone. We'll see what he does tonight on Monday Night Football. But Dbro, it does seem like Doubs and Love have a connection. Love starting to play very well. The Packers as a team right now starting to play very well also.
Yeah, I got to the outline before Fitzy, so I was able to grab the Packers guy. So good times for me. Romeo Doubs, man. I mean, like, we've seen this Vikings secondary giving up more production in the last few weeks, and the coverage matchup really leans in its favor for Romeo Doubs. I mean, we got a Minnesota secondary running the highest too high rate of the season. Since week 7, Doubs 26% target per route run rate, almost 2.0 yards per route run. He should be the number one option for Jordan Love against this secondary.
Okay, so look for Romeo Doubs, Jalen McMillan if they're still on the waiver wire. And look, some of these guys, roster percentage is still low. A lot of teams didn't want to make moves or didn't want the decision-making process of having to choose between the guy you're streaming off the waiver wire and the players that got you there. But look, this is about winning at the end of the day. And if you need a wide receiver 3 or you had some injuries or a flex, some of these guys, Benson, McMillan, Romeo Doubs, maybe even Kendre Miller might all be pretty useful there. Also useful is at this time, when you're starting to feel maybe not like yourself, you might have a situation called low testosterone, and it affects about 30% of adult men in America. And if you're feeling drag or fatigue, it might not just be the winter season. It might be something more serious. And if you're noticing a dip in muscle mass or sensing a slump in libido, if so, it's time to get your testosterone levels checked and tested. And if you have low T, Kyzatrex is an FDA-approved pill that's changing the game in the testosterone replacement therapy. In fact, Kyzatrex restored testosterone levels in nearly 9 out of 10 clinical study participants, and its unique formula is bypassing the liver to avoid any damage there. So it's time to break free from injections, pellets, and gels. Choose Kyzatrex and take the step towards being the hero of your life again. To see if you qualify, visit Kyzatrex.com or take the low T quiz today. That's KYZATREX.com, Kyzatrex.com. All right, let's take a look at the next position on our docket, the tight ends. Always a tricky one. Dbro, where do you want to go for your championship week streaming tight end?
Going to Zach Ertz, man. The number 2 in the Washington Commanders passing attack when he's been fully healthy. I was surprised he played last week, clearing concussion protocol, barely got in there. But this week, look, talked about Penix and talked about that game already. We hadn't even mentioned Jane Daniels being him and what he did last week. I mean, how many questions do we get on the stream, Joey, about do I start about Daniels? Do I start Jane Daniels?
Bro, that's like nothing.
Yes,
you should have seen Sunday.
Play them.
About everything was either Debo Samuel or and I'm like, look, play Debo Samuel. Like, you're trying to like force these other guys in, and just play the talent at the end of the day. Just play the talent. Like if it's being a talented guy and a terrible guy, but the talented guy's coming off a bad game or a couple of bad games, just try to play the talent. But the Jaden Daniels thing too, shocking. Like the only guy. The ones that were closer were the Joe Burrow ones, and Joe Burrow had been such a hot streak, like was 6 straight games with 250 or more and 3 touchdowns. The only guy to do that was Brady ever, and then Joe Burrow. So I get that question, but that was a game too, Fitzy, where it was a couple of games like that this weekend where Lamar Jackson was like, enough is enough. I'm tired of this nonsense, and they beat the pants off the Pittsburgh Steelers, and then the Washington Commanders. I talked about this on Betting Pros. This was a really interesting measuring stick game, and I was fascinated to see what the Commanders would do. Now, granted, Kenny Pickett, not Jalen Hurts. Okay, like I get that. Yeah, I get that's a big part of the equation. Yeah. But a W is a W at the end of the day, and that was a huge W there. A lot of those kind of statement games for some franchises, and the Vikings too. Make no mistake. I think for Sam Darnold, that was another huge win on the road. Man, they just keep winning football games. Fitzy, let's talk about tight end from your perspective. Who is streamable in Week 17?
Yeah, Joe, is a fantasy baseball guy. I know you are familiar with the term post-hype sleeper. And remember not long ago when there was some hype about Chig Okonkwo maybe being an up-and-coming tight end who we would be excited about using for fantasy, and that fizzled out and everyone kind of left Chig for dead. Well, Mason Rudolph has all of a sudden turned Chig into his favorite targets in Tennessee. Over the last 2 weeks, Chig has been targeted 21 times, double-digit targets each of his last 2 games, 17 catches for 140 yards. Like he is being turned into like ahead of Calvin Ridley, the top target in the Tennessee offense. I think you can play him against the Jaguars this week. The matchup isn't bad at all.
All right, so there you go. Chig Okonkwo, second life. I love this. The post-hype guys in Week 17. Why not? Sounds like a fun time to me. All right, let's talk a little bit about the defensive side of the football here, and then we'll get to the kickers. I'm saving the kickers for last today. Fitzy, let's talk about the Dolphins here for you because that's on your list. Dolphins take on Cleveland. You saw Dorian Thompson-Robinson, who's going to get a little bit of an audition. Do you think they saw enough yesterday? I'm just curious. Or do you think they're going to give him another game or two to just kind of evaluate what's on the roster?
They don't want to win games, Joe, in Cleveland. So I think they're going to start DTR again this week.
Ugh.
And this is a guy we want to target. In his 4 starts now over his career for the Browns have scored 3, 13, 12, and 6 points. And in 180 career pass attempts, DTR has averaged just 3.9 yards per attempt. And there are turnovers and sacks to be had here too. Miami is like my number 2 defense for this week overall, not just streaming, overall.
Wow. Well, they came out with a good performance yesterday against San Francisco, and San Francisco still has, a few playmakers left that are healthy. Fun fact too, Brock Purdy had more rushing yards this year than Christian McCaffrey. I just thought that was fun. I saw that yesterday.
Wow.
I was putting my TV show
That's
together
so
there, and I was like, wow, you want perspective of how 2024 kicks some people right in the pants? That's one for you. Because if I told you like those 4 weeks, you'd be like, oh no, it's McCaffrey right now. No, it's Brock Purdy. All right, I don't want to depress anybody further. It's the holidays. Everyone's miserable enough. Let's get to the other streaming defense of the week. Dbro, who do you have?
Yeah, people want to be depressed, just watch Giants football. That's what we're going to stream, the Indianapolis Colts defense this week, baby. Just keep on rolling it. Whoever's playing the Giants, done. That's my defense.
Yeah. Just New York football in general.
Yep. That's fair. Yep.
Just New York football
the
across
enigma.
The board. I don't know if there's much enigma. I think it's pretty clear what's going on. Fair. And I told everyone was way excited yesterday. Oh, Aaron Rodgers looks so good the last 2 games. Like, bro, he's been playing in Florida for the last 2 weeks. It's 6 degrees here this morning when I woke up in New Jersey. It's cold. Old people like me and Aaron Rodgers like going out in the cold. Fitzy's tough. He could take it.
I was going to say, don't lump Fitzy into that. Yeah,
Fitzy's way tougher. No. Fitzy's a tough guy.
Fitzy's out there at 4 a.m. like shoveling the front.
He's out shirtless there. He's got the cheese head on.
Oh God,
and the snowblower.
Packers tank top.
I wouldn't do
He's out there. Just a scarf. That's it. That's all he's got. Shirtless out there. The Snow Joe is running out there in the front yard. Giving the finger to the Bears fan across the street. Oh, goodness gracious. Let's get to the kickers because we have to. And apparently kicking is important from what we learned last night, at least. Dbro, give me a streaming kicker for week 17.
Oh, Will Lutz against the Bengals. Should be at least, I'm not going to say a full bounce back game for this Denver offense, but against, the Bengals defense is kind of the get right elixir for a lot of different offenses. Will Lutz, kicker 9 in fantasy points per game on the season, too.
All right, so Lutz in there against Cincinnati. And Fitzy, give me a kicker for the week.
Let's go with a different Will. It's goodwill toward men with streaming kickers this week. Will Reichard in Minnesota against the Packers. Look, this is the time of year where we are looking for indoor kickers, and Reichard gets to be an indoor cat at home against the Packers in week 16.
Yeah, and let me add Jared Goff to that list, too, of, like, I'm going to stick it up your rear end. I mean, Lamar, Goff, like, all these guys with something to prove. Bryce Young, a little bit to prove. Like, all that, really good. It was a fun weekend of prove-it football, especially from the quarterback position. Because, look, the numbers don't lie. Jared Goff, outdoors, not been great. Jared Goff, yesterday, pretty great. That play, too. How fun was that?
The fake stumble. Yes, that was excellent.
And credit to Ben Johnson, the coordinator, who saw it happen in the Packer game, and it was like, oh, look at that. I wonder if we could do that. And apparently he asked Goff, can you actually fumble the ball? And Goff's like, what are you, crazy? He's like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Goff's like, I'll pretend to fall, but I'm not fake fumbling for you and picking it up and trying to throw. That's a terrible idea. It's like, why don't you go back here? These guys chasing you at 300 pounds and see how you like fumbling the football. All right, let's get to the top waiver wire ads of the week. And as Fitzy mentioned, it is, goodwill toward men, the season of giving this time of year. And we'd love, wherever you get your podcast, to drop a nice 5-star review of the show, wherever you listen. Doesn't matter where. We appreciate that. So make sure you go ahead and do that. And again, write your comments below there as well. And if you haven't already, subscribe to the YouTube channel too, because we got a lot of amazing content going on in the off season. We got a lot of draft content, a lot of football content, free agency, recaps, previews, and some really fun things we've got planned too. So subscribe to the YouTube channel. And again, wherever you listen to your podcast, Throw a 5-star on that bad boy and a nice comment. We really appreciate it for all of the hard work that this crew here does in front of the scenes and especially behind the scenes too, that you don't see who put these shows out. The incredible group of people we have here at Fantasy Pros. Also, this time of year, it's the season of giving. And besides giving reviews, maybe you want to give the gift of something different. You're tired of getting those neckties, or you're tired of the socks for Christmas time or Hanukkah. You know what? Give the gift of tickets. And the great way to do that is with the Game Time app, because Game Time is the best place to get all of your tickets, whether it be for NFL, whether it be NBA, you're talking sporting events, you're talking theater events, you're talking comedy events, everything, you name it, they've got it. So if you haven't already, download the Game Time app today, create an account, use that promo code FantasyPros, and you'll get $20 off your first purchase. Again, they have the all-in pricing. You can see the seat right from the app that you're going to be sitting in. The lowest price is guaranteed too. And if you find something better, they're going to credit you 110% of the difference. So there you go. So Game Time app, again, terms and conditions apply. Create an account today and redeem that promo code FantasyPros, FANTSYPROS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. It's also time to talk about the top 5 waiver wire ads of the week for the championship run. Here we go, Fitzy. It's time to win it all. Give me the top 5 guys that might help people do that in week 17.
Trey Benson, number 1, but with an asterisk. If you are looking to stream a running back this week, you are going to have to bird dog the Arizona Cardinals injury news early in the week to make sure that Benson is going to be available. If he is, he's a really nice play this week, filling in, presumably for James Conner, who we don't expect to see in week 17. Number 2, Kendre Miller. I do have concerns about the quarterback and his ability to move the offense, but there aren't many lead receivers or lead running backs widely available. He is one. Jalen McMillan, number 3. Number 4, Gus Edwards, who, look, Gus is a between the tackles grinder, but he got into the end zone twice this past week. He's going to get double-digit carries this week against a bad New England Patriots run defense. He's got a pretty sturdy floor. And number 5, Alexander Mattison. I might pivot to the other guy in Las Vegas in a full-point PPR league. I'll let Dbro talk about him, but in standard or half-point PPR, I think I would prefer Mattison. Not a bad play this week against Jacksonville. Gives up a lot of points to running backs.
All right, Dbro, let's line up the top 5 here for week 17.
Yeah, so if Benson plays, he's the top ad of the week, but I worry that we probably don't see him this week, but it's questionable seeing as he didn't practice at all last week, but we'll see. If he is available, he is the top ad of the week. If not, Kendre Miller should be the top guy, number 2 or 3, depending on how you're ordering this. Next guy would be Jalen McMillan. Alexander Mattison would be 3rd on my list or 4th, depending. Considering it, look at the Raiders' backfield is gross. I'm not telling people that it's not, but Mattison getting the early down work and Amir Abdullah sneaking into my top 5 right after him. Both these guys are sniffing 10 to 12 opportunities. Both of them have touchdown equity in this offense. You're just looking at who's the early down guy playing the game script in that Saints game, or who's going to catch the passes. So like Fitzy was talking about Abdullah, maybe you want to go for him in a PPR league. And the last guy I'll mention here on the list, I talked about him earlier, is Romeo Doubs.
Okay, so there you go. Those are the top 5 everybody's got. Make sure you take a look at the waiver wire rankings too over at fantasypros.com and check out all the waiver wire content. Just because it's the holidays doesn't mean that we are sleeping on the job. The elves are busy working, putting together the best NFL content for the waiver wire you're going to find anywhere, and the fastest as well. So we'll keep you up to date. Also, don't forget, use my playbook, use autopilot. It's the holidays. It's a great time of year. If you're not sure what's going on, we got games on Christmas, all these things. You could set it and forget it. Sync your leagues for free. Use my playbook. Even if you didn't use it all year, this is a great time because things get crazy. You got games on Wednesday, Thursday, Saturday, Sunday. You got a lot of stuff going on this week. Don't lose a fantasy championship just because you missed a bit of news at the last second. Use autopilot. It's a great feature over there on my playbook. Go to fantasypros.com/myplaybook or just download the app wherever you get your apps. All right, everybody. So good luck to everybody out there. Go get him. Get that fantasy championship. That's what we've been trying to do all of this time for all of these many, many months. So a special shout out to the guys here too for doing great work all year on the waiver wire, making this show a very easy, fun one, and appreciate everybody out there listening to it. Again, have a happy holidays all for us here over at Fantasy Pros. That'll do it for us. But the story of the game goes on. For Dbro and Pat Fitzmaurice, I'm Joey P. We'll see you next time, kids. Enjoy the holidays. We'll see you next week.